Hey, everybody. The Next Lawyer Up podcast is sponsored by Bond and Botus. You can find us at bondandbotus.com. That's BONDANDBOTES.com. We practice in the areas of consumer bankruptcy, consumer law, including collection and telephone harassment, credit report issues, tax issues, security clearance issues, Social Security disability, and VA disability. So, with that, let's start the show. I'll be speaking today with Amy Tanner. This should be good because I've known Amy for a very long time. In fact, she's been my law partner for almost 20 years. And really in the area of law in which is our primary concentration, that's consumer bankruptcy law. I can't think of anyone who knows more about this area of law than Amy, and I include myself in that. Her knowledge of this area and just the things she's seen, and she's seen it all, it's unparalleled. I talk a lot about work ethic, whether it's to our other lawyers, staff, even my own kids. Amy's work ethic is off the charts. And she's one of those people that when you have a task to do, let's say you've got to write a grocery list, she can't do anything else until the task is completed. So if a grocery list needs to be done, she's going to stay here till it's done. And she really does that with everything as it relates to her, the practice of law, because as you can imagine, the legal tasks and the tasks the lawyer has to perform, they're many and plentiful, and they're always pressing. Really, as you'll hear, Amy's been like this since she was young, growing up in Montgomery. I hope you enjoy this. I think you'll enjoy hearing her story. All right, you ready to talk?
Sure.
All right. Well, you got to give me more than that. If it's not I'm not cross-examining you.
You're recording this, so are you going to edit this part out?
No, we're talking.
Oh.
No, that's how this goes. So, well, I've already introduced you, so did you have a long day today?
A very long day. I feel like I've been beaten.
We're recording this actually later in the day, which for either of us is not a great time. Fair?
Yeah, fair.
So, well, I guess let's start. In my introduction, I talked about your phenomenal work ethic. So
Okay.
Have you always had a strong work ethic like that?
I always have. I've actually been working since I was 11 or 12 years old.
I mean, working?
Well, I started out cutting yards in the neighborhood, going around to the elderly ladies' houses and knocking on their doors, and they would line me up for the summers to cut the yards. That would be my choice any day of the week.
So I've known you since when? Since 99?
99. Mm-hmm.
So as I say to folks, I probably don't say this to you enough, I'm very grateful you're in my world.
I'm very grateful I found you.
So. Well, let's go back a little bit. So you're from Montgomery.
Correct.
Born and raised?
Yes.
Okay. And where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school at Sidney Lanier in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
Home of the poets. My dad went there. My sister went there. My dad actually went to school there with Tony Tennille.
Tony Tennille of
like a
Captain
and Tennille.
Didn't they just get divorced? Did you hear that, or is that in your? That's crazy.
Yeah, after many, many years.
So, no, why do you say poets? Is that their name?
That's the mascot.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
The poets.
So, that doesn't sound too, that's not a tiger or a wildcat, right?
No, it's kind of a strange mascot. People kind of made fun of that. So, and we never had the best football team, and we always lost to the biggest team in town, Jeff Davis.
Gotcha.
Where my husband went to school, was always our big rival, and we never could beat him.
No, Robert went to Jeff Davis?
He went to Jeff Davis.
No, they have, a great athletic program,
They
right?
always have had, yeah.
Now, so you're from Montgomery, so you graduated high school. Well, how'd you do in high school?
In high school, I did okay. Probably could have done a lot better. If you want to know some of the regrets in life, I should have studied more in high school.
Right, isn't everything we do, it's all about regrets,
all about
right?
Hindsight is 20/20. I was actually, for the first 2 years I was in high school, I was in what's called the LAMP program, which is the Lanier Academic Motivational Program, which was a an AP type, advanced placement type program. So you'd go ahead and take some college prep courses. You'd get extra. I think we took, where most people took 6 classes a week or day. You took 7 classes a day. And it was in the first years of that program. Actually, that program is still going on at schools in Montgomery, the advanced placement programs, and there's kids still in those programs. But I decided I wanted to have a little more fun in high school, and so I bailed out of that program in my senior year, which is probably regret number 1.
Well, now it sounds like when it says motivational program, it wasn't forced motivation. It was for
not
students
forced.
who were motivated.
It was for people who were smart. If you were in the gifted program in elementary and junior high school, which I was, then that was kind of the natural thing, was to go on to the LAMP program. But back to the work ethic thing. Because I had so many hours in high school from doing in the motivational program in 10th and 11th grade, in the 12th grade I only had to go to school for 3 hours every day, and then I would go to work. That's why I did it, to go to work. So,
and what kind of jobs did you have in high school? Now, don't tell me you're still cutting grass.
Not so much anymore, no. Let's see, in high school in those years, I worked at a retail store. Everyone's heard of The Limited. That was the place to shop when you were in high school. I worked there. I worked in a yogurt store. I worked in a movie store. At one point, I had all 3 of those jobs at one time, and I was going to school.
Now, knowing you, I'm imagining a lot of the profits you made from working at The Limited went right back into The Limited. Is that
It did
fair?
go right back to The Limited and gas money. And,
right.
Yeah. And my parents were nice enough to buy me my first car. It wasn't much of a car, but it got me to those jobs.
No, and I do. I mean, your work ethic, it's astounding. I think I've got a very good work ethic, and I think yours is. I think
we're right there together.
Yours is shocking.
So I think we're right there together. Don't give me too much credit.
And I don't know where that comes from. If it's born of insecurity, if it's born of what motivates someone to, what gives someone drive.
What motivates me is I don't want to depend on anybody. I mean, neither one of my parents went to college, and I don't know. I hate to be sounding like I'm the first person. My sister went to college, but cousins, all that, not a whole lot went to college, and I guess my parents kind of, looking back, I didn't realize it when I was younger, but looking back, I don't know how we did it. I mean, I'm sure they struggled financially all their lives, or until at least they got us out of the house.
Right.
But I said at that point, I was going to never depend on anybody and never have to live like that.
No. So, all right. So you get out of high school, and with some regret of not working as hard, in the end as you should have. But all right. So you get out. Now, where do you go to college?
I went to college at AUM, Auburn University, Montgomery, because, again, since I lived in Montgomery, it was still living in Mom and Daddy's house, free place to stay, free food to eat, and my parents could afford to pay the tuition there. So, unlike my sister, I did not get a full ride. She got a full ride.
Right.
I did
That
not.
goes back to the last couple of years.
To the last year of high school.
Right.
But my parents did pay for that, and so I was able to live at home and go to college at the same time, and I could still work my 2 or 3 jobs.
Where did you work in college?
I was going to college. In college, I had started working for a group of ophthalmologists. So I kind of started out as a file clerk for there and worked my way up to like a nurse's assistant.
At the ophthalmologist?
At the ophthalmologist's office.
Did you wear glasses then?
I did not. I didn't. Law school gave me my glasses.
You mean that's why you got glasses?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, what do you? I just lost my train of thought. Glasses, ophthalmologist.
Worked for the ophthalmologist, and I still worked at the Limited when I was in college.
Did you really?
Yeah, I worked both jobs.
Now, did you have time for school?
I went to The way we did classes then, it was like 2 days, two or 3 full days a week. You could take weekend classes. So I did a lot of weekend kind of classes where you just go like 12 hours a day on Saturday and Sunday for 3 weeks straight and get your credits that way.
No, that's pretty progressive for them to have weekend classes.
I did
right?
that. It was at the time, I think. Yeah,
oh,
they may
cool.
do that a lot more now. But and AUM was more of a college for locals.
Right.
I think it's grown a little bit now, but people who live local and working college
right.
students. So yeah.
So you're in college, and what do you think in the future it looks like? Grass cutting, ophthalmology? Right.
I was a criminal justice major in college because that was kind of I was always interested in that, and frankly, I thought I would go more in that area of law when I finished law school. But things happen, or you don't always do what you think you're going to do. But I majored in criminal justice. Probably there, like you, I kind of lost my train of thought after the hard day.
No, it was a long day.
It was a long day, and my brain's still a little fried from some athletic activity I did all weekend. So criminal justice major. Didn't really know what I would do coming out of school with that. I mean, okay, let's be honest. At the time, steady boyfriend. Everybody assumed that would be the person I married, and I figured I would be doing that, and I don't know what else. But so I came out of the criminal justice program with a degree. Took a year off because I didn't really know what for sure I wanted to do. I didn't go straight into law school. I was still working at the ophthalmologist's office, still living at home with mom and dad. Right. So I took a year off, and by then I've broken up with the boyfriend, and although I have another one by then.
Well, let's talk about the ultimate Mr. Lucky. He's lucky, you're lucky.
Well, I met him in college, but he was part of my motivation, I guess, for going on to law school. But law school's a pretty big endeavor, and I had always kind of thought about it in the back of my head, but before jumping in, that's why I took the year off to decide. And I remember reading, I want to say it's The Pelican Brief by John Grisham, but there's a line in there that says something along the lines of, I went to law school because I wasn't ready to get a real job yet. Right. So, yeah, that may take away from the work ethic of you think of me, but I wasn't ready to get a real job yet, so I thought, yeah, law school, that sounds pretty good. I always kind of thought about being a lawyer, and that might be a good job. So I decided to go into law school, and again, staying in the vein of free place to live and free food to eat. Lived with my parents and went to Jones School of Law in Montgomery.
So you just commuted there. I mean, so it's in town.
It's in town, so I was able to stay there. Of course, between my first and second year of law school, I got married, and my husband's company transferred us here to North Alabama. And at that point, I just kind of commuted back and forth and finished up school in Montgomery.
Okay. And so you take the bar, and then you decide, well, you're gonna find a job, and you're looking up here. Mm-hmm. So, well, and in the introduction before you got here, I said I was going to be talking to you today, and I said you're probably, in my mind, I mean, I know a lot about consumer bankruptcy. I can't imagine anyone knows more than you.
Well, I'm glad you have that much confidence in me.
I have a lot of confidence.
I kind of feel that way. I mean, I'll put myself out there sometimes, to potential clients that, yes, I know everything there is to know about bankruptcy, consumer bankruptcy. It's not what I thought it would do. Again, that's where it comes in. I'm glad I came across you, and here we'll live happily ever after. But, yeah, I mean, starting out, it was a pretty tough gig to break into the legal world at all. I mean, if you want to go back to odd jobs and work ethic, I worked at, but after I finished law school, I moved to North Alabama full time because my husband was already up here. And at that point, we were living in Section, Alabama. Right,
which is northeast,
which is on Sand Mountain, northeast Alabama, Jackson County, Sand Mountain. And, that was such a small town. I wasn't particularly keen on hanging out my shingle in a town I didn't grow up in a tight-knit community like that. And I started searching over in Huntsville, since it's only about 45-minute drive or so from where I was living. And, several interviews, but it was pretty tight-knit in the legal world over here, too. At that
and beyond that, I mean, let's face it, it's the job market back then was tough. It's now 5 times tougher,
much worse now. Yeah, much worse now. And so, but it seemed tough to me back then. But of course, I'd moved here and don't know anybody. I have no contacts or anything. And I ended up working at a goodies store in Fort Payne just to make ends meet. Right. Until I could find a job. Right. And
now, were you depressed about that? Here's all this high-flying education.
It was a little depressing.
Welcome to goodies.
Welcome to goodies. And
I've never been to a goodies store. Is that like a 5 and dime? What we call in the old days, a 5 and dime?
Maybe a smidge better, but yeah, I was bold enough because I knew it wasn't going to be my career move for sure, that I was bold to say I'm not working on weekends and I only want to be a cashier. So I was a cashier at Goodies during the week in Fort Payne, Alabama for about 3 months until I found you, which a college college sorority sister, and also went to law school with her, Gail Hughes, or Gail Donaldson now, in our Montgomery office.
Right.
We'd known each other quite a while, and she put me in touch with you.
Now, so the work we do, it's interesting, and it's I was telling someone the other day, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know, right? Especially as it relates to our practice. So we do consumer bankruptcy, and there are so many nuanced issues and interplay and interlying issues. I mean, agreed?
That is so true. And like you said, the more you know, the more pitfalls you see for yourself and your clients. And you can get very, you know what can happen, and you know the ins and outs
Right.
and the do's and don'ts. And there's so many once you get into this area. I mean, I know so many people who are afraid of bankruptcy. I mean, to me at this point, it kind of comes second nature, because it's what I've been doing for almost 17 years now, going on 18 years,
Right,
I guess.
Time. Let's say a long time.
A long time. And so it's not scary to me per se, except, as long as I try to watch my P's and Q's.
Right.
But a lot of people are scared to come over in the bankruptcy world. They're very scared of it because there's so many pitfalls and so many nuances. And,
Well, can you imagine being a new lawyer coming in new and just trying to learn this and learning it on your own if you didn't have someone to, if not teach you, to kind of guide?
Learning it on your own would just be a death knell. I mean, there's too much that can happen once you file that bankruptcy case that you can't undo.
Right.
It's a done deal.
Now, what in our practice, I mean, and you and I have had this discussion a lot of times, the worst thing we deal with is, number one's got to be judgment liens. Agreed?
Oh, judgment lien. They make me cringe. If I see one on my desk, I immediately go knees weak and start to hyperventilate until I realize that it's either been taken care of or I'm able to take care of it. And I mean, that's one thing, that, maybe our clients don't always see the behind the scenes work we do, but at least in this electronic age, I feel better about judgment liens to a certain extent because I can get my hands on them better than we used to back in.
But, can we get
15,
that for every county?
No, we're very limited to the counties
So
we
what
can.
counties do you know here in North Alabama we can go?
Madison County and Morgan County, I have access to more recent liens. Which here, as you well know, one of those nuances, again, we've been talking about, you would think, hey, a judgment lien 10 years, if we can go back that far, we're good to go. But not necessarily, because you and I both learned over the years about the 20 years to renew and blah, blah, blah. So it's helpful to be able to check that for some of the clients that we can get to the records on. But then for others, it's really great for our, try to get our clients to help us on that end. And
well, the thing is, it's, once someone, so, I've been doing these other commercials and I talk about lawsuits and the point or the moment someone is sued, I mean, so many bad things can happen. I'm like, you better be in front of that lawsuit, and let's do everything humanly possible to avoid a judgment.
So many bad things. I mean, if we could just get it across that, hey, if you get that, you need to, call us or someone
Fight
immediately.
Do something.
And do something, because it's too many bad things that can happen. And most folks have no idea that can turn into, eventually they lose their home over it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if I didn't do this, I wouldn't know that.
Right.
And
it's the moment you're sued and have a judgment, it's credit ruination. I mean, that's
Complete
the start
ruination.
point, and that's probably the most mild thing that can happen.
As
with
a matter of fact,
judgment,
that's what I tell people, clients who maybe potential clients who come in and they have one or two lawsuits maybe in their hands. Maybe it's one of them already, come to a default judgment, and we start talking bankruptcy, and they're so scared, because me, everybody grows up thinking, bankruptcy, stay away, let me get out my Dracula garlic.
Right.
And but it's really not like that, and I see that now that I'm on this side of the desk. But they'll say, oh, but bankruptcy, my credit, and I just immediately pick up the lawsuits and I say, it's only going to improve your credit.
Right.
Look, this has already done it in. Bankruptcy at this point is a step up.
Right, and how many times do we tell folks that if your credit's perfect, a bankruptcy is a killer, right?
Correct.
But if you're behind, if you're getting, how do you know if you're behind? If you're getting collection calls, dunning letters,
If you're already behind 60, 90 days and starting to get calls, when you're going to make your payment, your credit's already in worse shape than any bankruptcy is ever going to make it. And I don't know. I guess I know you see it too. I see a lot of the bankruptcy stuff, but people wait too long. People wait too long to come do the bankruptcies a lot of times. And so we both see that every day.
Yeah, and then they wait so long that now they can't make the utility bill that's coming up. I mean, the stuff that really needs to get paid for, but because they've been robbing Peter to
they
pay
slip
Paul,
behind on their house payments, or yeah.
So, and I don't really want to talk too much shop, but just some of the things. So the judgment lien. What else do you see that's bad? What's anything else that in our world that really worries you?
Transfers of property.
Fair.
That's another killer. Again, people don't realize this is another thing that as a layperson, I probably would know this either, if I didn't do this. But, whenever you own something, if you owe somebody, that something belongs to that person you owe.
Right.
Regardless of bankruptcy, whether or not you want to pay back mama, daddy, brother, sister that lets you borrow money. Your assets belong to your creditors if you owe your creditors. And one of the worst things folks can do is, even innocently, I'm not saying people are doing it on purpose, but innocently making transfers of property when you owe debts.
Right. And when I hear that, I tell folks, so what we're talking about is, I have a bunch of debt. I own a piece of land. Well, I want my son to have the land. I'll just deed it over to him, and then I'll look at my bankruptcy options, right? But I always tell folks, the law is a lot smarter than that. If everyone could do that, everyone would do that, right?
That's true.
But it's a lot smarter. And, the thing we deal with and our trustees that we deal with are very sharp, shrewd. They're compassionate, but they also have a job to do. They use that Alabama fraudulent conveyances statute, right?
Exactly.
Which allows them to look back 10 years especially if the transfer was to an insider mother, father, son, or daughter, but it's crazy.
Yeah, we've had we have people who come in and have done that now, and then at that point you just have to take the picture and do the best you can with their facts. Right. Which most folks we get in here, we can take their facts and work it into something positive.
And that's the other thing too. When people talk about if we're talking to people who just are not lawyers, don't do what we do, kind of the common sentiment, though I don't hear it as much now, but I bet you people run up debt and just file bankruptcy. I never hear that or see that.
I never see that. I mean, ever. And that's,
no one wants to do this.
No one wants. No. The last place people want to come is in here.
Even though we have a nice place,
we try to make it a pleasant experience. And frankly, honestly, just this week I've had 2 people leave and say, wow, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. We don't bite, we try to handle everybody just, as nice as can be. We don't want to be like your creditors and nag you and beat down your door. But yeah, so, there, I lost my train of thought again.
Well, it's that
long day.
Well, I mean, we usually don't do stuff like this
at this time of day.
Yeah. So
after a full day.
But no, that's the thing. Otherwise, we would.
And lots of coffee.
We had so many people coming in today that this was the only time to do this. So
the end of the year, we see a lot of foreclosures. The banks start cleaning out. They're making quotas for the year. So that's where we're at right now.
Well, what do you think about, so going back to your law school days, we already know some of your regrets from high school. College doesn't sound like too many regrets.
Sorority, yeah, is a regret. Don't be in a sorority. Save your money. Public service announcement.
When you say that, I always think of, I'm a Back to the Future fan, right? Save the clock tower. Save the clock tower.
Yeah, save your money from the sorority people.
But well, but people have to live and go through stuff themselves, right?
That's true. Again, hindsight's 20/20 for all of us. So,
but isn't the common lament that younger folks need to make their own mistakes? But you feel like if this is a pretty good path. If you would follow this, you'd be in pretty good shape.
You learn from your mistakes, so maybe they're good mistakes. The regrets are actually good mistakes.
What about law school? Any tips for law students?
Study more than I did. Yeah, that's one of the differences.
This doesn't instill confidence.
That's one of the things. That's one of the differences I see between me and you. I think you studied more than I did. Yeah, you retained a lot of the general knowledge of law school. Yeah, I'll still claim to be the expert on bankruptcy, but don't ask me to.
Believe me, I give you.
Don't
that
ask me to pull some general law from torts 101 out of my head for you.
Now, do you
that
remember
learned.
this phrase from law school? Equity abhors forfeiture. Have you ever heard
yes,
that?
Yes.
I'm not going to ask you about the rule against
don't ask me the rule, but the phrase is familiar. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I mean, and if I worked full time while I went to law school. If you don't have to do that, which most law students don't do that, most law schools don't allow it. One of the reasons I chose the school I did was so I could still work because as I paid for my own law school. I had to pay for my own law school, and so there was no way I could have done that if I hadn't kept working while I went to law school. So I went to school basically at night. I worked all day and went to school from 6 to 10:30 every night.
Is that how you did that?
That's how I did school. Mm-hmm. Wow. I worked 5 days a week, full time, and I went to school 3 nights a week.
This is law school now we're talking.
Yeah, we're in law school.
Wow.
6 to 10:30, 3 nights a week at law school then for three and a half years.
No, that's pretty grueling, and you have to appreciate. And you got married while in law school?
Got married. Yep, we moved out on our own. My husband was getting a master's degree.
Where do you have the time for all this stuff?
We were both in school. Yeah, not a lot of free time back then.
Right.
So yeah, but who could afford free time? So back then.
But you know what? The end part is, I mean, while you're going through that, I'm sure there was, regret's the wrong word, but it's kind of like, man, why am I having to work so hard? But the end game or the end result.
I never really thought of it that way because, like I said, I've worked most of my life since I was 11 or 12 years old.
Well, and you do what you got to do.
And it's what I've always wanted to do. I mean, like I didn't. I mean, my parents, certainly I had a very good life and they took good care of us and we had everything we needed, but there was a lot more I wanted.
Right.
So I started working to get it.
Right. But yeah, the law school, I have found people, maybe that's the work ethic, because we both know lawyers here in North Alabama that did that worked full time and actually some commuted down to Birmingham to go to school, which that's insane to me. Yeah. Right. I went to law school right out of college, but I mean, doing it that other way, I mean, what a investment of time and energy, right?
And lack of sleep.
Right.
There were many nights that I would have brief stew that I would insist my husband stay up all night with me and sit at the table with me while I researched and typed and did all these things, and we would lay down to sleep at 5 o'clock and get up at 5:30.
So you're saying a healthy half hour?
The big half hour of sleep so we could both go to work the next day because he was getting, like I said, a master's degree at the same time I was in law school, and we were both working full time.
Well, what about, so do you what else would you like to do if you weren't practicing law?
The dream job?
Yeah.
The dream job?
The dream job. I'm going to guess. You've never told me this. Here's my guess. You'd want to be a personal trainer.
A professional triathlete, yeah. Preferably a professional triathlete. But,
okay. If not,
personal trainer would be good. Yeah. Or something in that general area. But yeah, my dream job would be professional triathlete.
Now, you just ran. What type of race? I know you tell me, and I mean, you're always
blah,
at
blah,
these
blah,
races.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's kind of like
it's the snooping. Wah, wah,
yeah.
wah. Right.
Actually, I just did a half Ironman, which is a triathlon, which is a 1.2 mile swim, a 56 miles on the bike, and a 13.1 mile run.
So it's half of all that.
No, that's the full. That's the distance I did.
Okay.
A full is double all of that. A full Ironman.
And I know you've got your foot is hurt. How did you get through all that?
Well, I have a fractured heel, and I'm currently in a boot. I took the boot off and toughed it out.
So, it's a lot of sacrifice.
Toughed it out through the swim and the bike weren't so bad, but the run was pretty brutal. Not to mention it was 100 degrees in Augusta, Georgia on Sunday with blaring sun. During this race.
In a September Sunday in Augusta.
Hot water, no wetsuits.
Now, did Robert play golf there?
Oh, no. There's no time for golf when you're being the triathlete's Sherpa.
I gotcha. That's funny.
Yes. You're required to stand on every street corner and cheer and pick you up at the finish line.
That's funny. Well, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
I just wanted to kind of share some time with you, and I appreciate you sitting down with me.
All right. Good deal.
So that was Amy Tanner, and I hope you enjoyed it. Again, bondandbotus.com has sponsored this podcast. And we also have, if you want to, you've heard us talking about judgment liens and some of the other bad things that can happen to folks before a bankruptcy. But if you want to poke around, we have a book out there. It's available at Amazon. It's called Bankruptcy. We wrote the book on it. It's available at Amazon.com. And it's also available at bondandbotusbankruptcybook.com. Of course, our main website is bondandbotus.com, bondandbotes.com. And also, on a completely separate and side note, if you have any security clearance issues or concerns or problems or revocations or any and all of that, securityclearancedefenselawyer.com. That features me. Again, securityclearancedefenselawyer.com. So that's about it. Thank you.
The Alabama Bar requires the following. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers. Please also see the bottom page of every page of our website for the disclaimer. You can click on that for the disclaimer for every state where we practice.